Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
The 27th session of the Senate in the first regular session of the 18th Congress is hereby called to order. The chamber will be led in prayer by Senator Pia S. Cayetano.
Let us bow our heads. Almighty Father, we come together today with a shared goal of honoring your great plans for the entire Filipino nation. As servants of your people, we are duty-bound to discuss and champion measures that will pave the way for the protection of our countrymen, especially the most vulnerable members of society. Give us each a humble heart and the courage to open our minds, to explore ideas that are different from ours, because only then can we truly grow and find innovative solutions to the present needs of our times. As we embark on this challenging yet fruitful task, we remember your holy words from 1 Peter 4:10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. We lift this up to you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 20 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Before we move to official matters, we'd just like to recognize in the gallery, we have with us the distinguished distinguished Secretary of the Department of Finance, Secretary Sunny Dominguez, together with his officials, Yusek Carl Chua, the man of our dreams. Yan ang suki namin sa Senado. Sherwin's dreams, Mr. President. And together with them, we have CHED Chairman Prospero Popoy de Vera III, and we have also Governor Mian Mercado of Southern Leyte. We have students from Grace Christian School of Quezon City that are here today, I believe on the right side of the, on my right. And, oh, the alma mater of Senator Gatchalian. Yes, from Grace Christian. We also have mayors with us today, Mayor of Santa Maria Laguna, Mayor Cindy Carolino, Mayor Sun Shimura of Bantayan, Cebu, and Board Member Kerry Shimura of the 4th District of Cebu that are here. It's also my inaanak, my godchildren. But most of all, Mr. President, we would like to greet a very good friend of ours, a colleague of ours, Senator Bong Revilla, for his 45th birthday. May we suspend, Mr. President, so we can greet our colleague?
Yes, we would like to welcome our guests to the Senate and would like to greet Senator Bong Revilla a very happy birthday. Session suspended.
ibang klase.
Tatanungin natin siya. At the proper time. Hindi. Patanong mo kayo. Mamaya. Session resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 26th session, Tuesday, September 24, 2019. Consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with and is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will proceed to the reference of business.
Reference of business, message from the House of Representatives, letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 23 September 2019, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 4611 entitled An Act designating the third Sunday of November every year as the National Day of Remembrance for Road Crash Victims, Survivors, and their families, ensuring its meaningful observance.
Referred to the Committee on Public Services.
House number 4466 entitled An Act integrating labor education to social science subjects in the higher education curriculum.
Referred to the Committees on Higher, Technical, and Vocational Education, Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development.
House number 4599, an act separating Sitio Panacan II from Barangay Panacan in the municipality of Nara, province of Palawan, and constituting it into a separate and independent barangay to be known as Barangay Panacan II.
To the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
House number 4600, an act separating the sitios of Ileb, New Colayo Village, Kinama, and Nambaran, Daya from Barangay Nambaran, City of Tabuk, Province of Kalinga, and constituting them into a separate independent barangay to be known as Barangay Nambaran East.
To the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
House number 4601, entitled An Act creating a barangay to be known as Barangay New Lower Bicutan, the City of Taguig, Metropolitan Manila.
Referred to the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
House number 4602, an act creating a barangay to be known as Barangay San Miguel, the City of Taguig, Metropolitan Manila.
To the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
And House number 4603, an act creating a barangay to be known as Barangay North Daanghari in the City of Taguig, Metropolitan Manila.
Referred to the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms.
Bills on first reading, Senate number 1072, entitled An Act regulating the sale, lease, ownership, and operation of drones, mandating the registration of drone dealers and drone owners, operators, and prescribing penalties for the violation thereof, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committees on Public Services and Trade.
Senate number 1073, an act to preserve the evidence generated from security cameras, introduced by Senator De Lima.
To the Committees on Public Order and Finance.
Resolutions. Senate Joint Resolution number 6, entitled Joint Resolution extending the availability of the 2019 appropriations for maintenance and other operating expenses and capital outlays to December 31, 2020, amending for the purpose Section 65 the general provisions of Republic Act number 11260, the General Appropriations Act of Fiscal Year 2019, introduced by Senator Marcos.
To the Committee on Finance.
PS Resolution number 144, resolution congratulating and commending Heidelin Diaz for winning 2 bronze medals in the 2019 International Weightlifting Federation World Championships held in Pattaya, Thailand, introduced by Senator Pacquiao.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 145, resolution commending and congratulating table tennis prodigy All J. Villena for qualifying the World Championship of Ping Pong WCPP to be held at Alexandria Palace, London on January 25 to 26, 2020, introduced by Senator Angara.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report. Committee report number 6, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Ways and Means on Senate number 1074 with Senators Pacquiao and Cayetano as authors thereof, entitled An Act increasing the excise tax on alcohol products, heated tobacco products, and vapor products, amending for this purpose sections 141, 142, 143, 144, 147, 150, and 288 of Republic Act number 8424 as amended, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 383 and 987, taking into consideration House number 1026, sponsor Senator Cayetano.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar for special ordinary business to special order Senate Bill number 1074 under Committee Report number 6. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1074 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
An act increasing the excise tax on alcohol products, heated tobacco products, and vapor products, amending for this purpose sections 141, 142, 143, 144, 147, 150, and 288 of Republic Act number 8424 as amended, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and for other purposes.
Mr. President, we recognize the distinguished senator from Taguig, Senator Pia S. Cayetano, the Chair of Committee on Ways and Means, to sponsor the said measure. So moved.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, today I rise to sponsor and seek your support for Senate Bill number 1074, which aims to increase excise taxes on alcohol, e-cigs, and heated tobacco products. But before I proceed, this representation would like to share a video with you, which is a compilation of news reports that we are confronted with on a regular basis.
At nangungulit na rin daw ang tatlo sa iba pa nilang customer.
Nagpaputok pa ng baril ang pulis na lasing umano.
Binatukan, tinadyakan, at pinagsusuntok. Yan ang sinapit ng dalawang paggalugan sa tatlong lasing sa loob ng computer shop sa Bulacan.
Isang Borokan ang nagwala at nagawan pa ng away sa loob ng istasyon ng pulis.
Aminado si Balucan na nakainom sila, pero depensa niya,
Umaharurot ang motor sa kalye sa Iriga City. Hindi ito nagminor kahit na papalapit na sa kanto. Pagtawid, bumulaga ang isa pang motor at doon na naganap ang disgrasya. Ayon sa Iriga PNP, lasing ang dalawang rider na sumemplang, patuloy ang investigasyon.
Na-recover ng mga polis ang basyon na mula raw sa barel na 9mm.
Lasing po, bigla na lang po siyang lumabas dyan.
Yung baril niya po, nagtututok, tapos bigla pong ginano sa taas.
Ako nahuli dahil lasing ako. Dahil sa kasalanan ko, nagpaputok ang baril. Ito, nahuli ako. Ay, binili ko! Bakit? Alam nga naman, hindi lisensyado yan. Galing yan sa illegal.
Bakit malabang yan? Magtanong ko sa'yo nga. Tama na. Tumapada pa ako. Tumapa ka.
ayaw magpaawat at nagpupumiglas pa ang lalaki si Dennis Balucan habang inaaresto ng mga pulis sa Timog Avenue sa Quezon City. Itinulak pa niya si Police Officer 1 Mark Anthony Velasco na natumba sa kalsada. Nangyari yan matapos banggain ang minamaneho niyang UV Express ang tatlong nakaparadang taxi kanina madaling araw. Dalawang sakay ng UV Express na kapwa lasing at galing sa beer house. Aminado si Balucan na nakainom sila. Maharap siya sa patong-patong na reklamo.
Colleagues, with this in mind, this representation embarked on the task of undertaking the tax reform programs cognizant of the objectives set by our finance and health departments. 1, increasing taxes for products with higher alcohol content. 2, addressing inequities in our current excise tax system. And 3, achieving the revenue objective needed to fund the government's health care program. Mr. President, we listened to various stakeholders, questioned and analyzed relevant information provided by resource persons and experts in both the private and public sectors. This process has led us to a singular, reasonable, and patriotic conclusion: to impose a significantly higher excise tax on these so-called sin products. This is what our social conscience dictates, guided by our concern for the welfare of families and children, and in pursuit of the public good. Mr. President, I am sure you know the lyrics of this song by Louis Armstrong. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They learn so much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I was going to ask Senator Bato to sing that for us, but I didn't want your attention to be drawn to him instead of me. Anyway, I am reminded of that song because indeed we live in a wonderful world. But all this beauty in life can get distorted and lost and diminished by certain addictions that we now have the opportunity to address. I'll start with alcohol. Wonderful lives are cut short because of people who drink and drive. We often hear about innocent people dying from road crashes, someone who was once a father, a mother, a child, or a friend. In seconds, their lives are forever changed or wasted because a drunk person foolishly decided to take the wheel and drive. According to Dr. Orlando Ocampo, the Chief of Trauma Division of the Philippine General Hospital, 55% of the injured patients they treat in the emergency room have alcohol on their breath. 25% of these injured patients are blood alcohol content positive, and these are just the reported cases, Mr. President. We are convinced that the number of those driving under the influence is much, much more. Mr. President, there's also glaring evidence that excessive alcohol use endangers people's health. Alcoholism is associated with at least 39 main diseases, including liver cirrhosis, cancer, pancreatic disease, hypertensive disease, tuberculosis, diabetes, and even behavioral and psychotic disorders. Data from the World Health Organization also showed that in 2016, 4,431 per 100,000 population of Filipinos died from liver cirrhosis, 16,418 from hypertensive disease, and 8,526 from tuberculosis, all of which were due to the excessive use of alcohol. Meanwhile, Filipinos who died from injuries related to binge drinking reached 18,938. Excessive drinking is a common cause of road crashes. From 2016 to 2018, there has been a total of 10,372 road crashes due to alcohol consumption. Nowadays, we talk about drug addiction as we would any other serious disease, yet how many of us talk about alcoholism in this way? Alcoholism is the silent killer that keeps getting away because we don't talk about it. To many Filipinos, drinking alcohol is but an ordinary pastime and an ultimate stress reliever. Hindi natin siya pinag-uusapan maski na sa halos bawat barangay, kilala natin kung sino ang gabi-gabing umuuwi na lasing sa kanilang mga tahanan. The impact of our problem on alcoholism, Mr. President, is not felt by the drinker alone. The lives of those around them, their families, bystanders, and innocent people are also greatly affected. In fact, some of these victims have to suffer the consequences for the rest of their lives because not everyone who gets hit by a drunk driver dies. Mr. President, as alcohol becomes cheaper with the rise in household income, and as alcohol becomes more affordable and accessible for vulnerable groups like the poor and the young, the risk is real that we will see these numbers grow. Filipinos already consume on average 11 liters of hard alcohol beverage per year, higher than the global and ASEAN average of below 10 liters per year. If you look at the table on the left, that is the Philippine average. Tayo po ang pinakamataas. Global champion na po tayo sa inuman. But that is not something we should be proud of. Huwag kayong humiyaw. Maging champion sana tayo sa sports katulad ni Senator Manny Pacquiao o sa darating na Southeast Asian Games. Pero wag naman sa inuman, patawarin. But on that note, Senator Manny has always been a champion in and out of the ring. He filed Senate Bills number 383 and 987, increasing excise taxes on alcohol, e-cigarettes, and heated tobacco products. Global data shows that on a per capita basis, Filipinos were the #1 consumer of distilled spirits in 2017. We have consumed more brandy, gin, and rum than the rest of the world combined. Meanwhile, we are the largest gin consumer per liter in the world, as you can see in this chart. Ayun sa chart, tingnan nyo yung may arrow, number 1 ang Pilipinas. Again, hindi ho ako proud dyan. When heavy drinking is involved, severe physical violence is more likely to take place. Studies found alcohol misuse to be a significant contributor to family violence. Ginoong Pangulo, ilan na po ba ang mga bata na nakasaksi ng pambubugbog ng nanay dahil sa lasing na ama? Millions of Filipino children endure this violence at home. Many of them end up developing mental and emotional problems, or worse, repeating the cycle of abuse themselves. It is within the Senate's power to create safer environment for our children. This situation has deteriorated so much that some alcohol manufacturers see young people as consumers too. I will ask our page to pass this around for all of you to see if you haven't seen it. Talagang para ho sa lasing, kahit baliktaran, makikita mo yung pangalan niya. Ayan. Kahit lasing ka, pwede mo pa rin basahin kasi pag baliktad, nandun pa rin yung pangalan niya. There is no doubt that an alcohol drink presented in this kind of packaging targets children with their bright colors and the youth as potential consumers of their product. The moral sense of any proposed sin tax rate, Mr. President, is that it should serve as a deterrent to drinking. It should not be so cheap as to allow minors to afford and have access to these drinks. It should not be so cheap to make it easier for drunk fathers to be wife beaters and for traumatized children to lead miserable lives. Mr. President, dear colleagues, this representation wants you to know that I do not take the trust you have put in me as your chairperson lightly. Neither do I believe that taxation is a silver bullet for this addiction. I have painstakingly studied the different rates and price points of various alcohol products and took the time to deeply consider the sentiments of the consumers as well, particularly the responsible drinkers. And so, we asked the average Filipino drinker how they felt about the tax to be imposed on their favorite alcohol. I direct you to the screen to watch this short clip.
Palaw si Ada, isang mangisda sa Lawa ng Laguna. Natuto ko mag-inom na edad ko ay 16. Ngayon, nabalitaan ko na tataas pa ang buwis ng alak. At tumapayag po ako na tumaas. Dahil hindi naman masasayang ang pagtaas eh. Gawa ng sa pondo ng gobyerno mapapunta. At ito ngayon, ako, edad ko, 39 nga. May 4 na anak ako. Payag na payag ako na tumaas na ganoon para sa pamilya ko rin naman mapapunta yung pati sa buong Pilipinas.
Ako si Baby Pardo. Matagal na ako minom. Bata pa ako, mga 25. Minom na ako. Lahat na ng alak na tikman ko na. Narinig ko nga ngayon sa panahon ngayon, tumaas na yung alak. Tataas pa. Pero masarap ang alak eh. Kahit tumaas ang alak ano pa rin ako. Sangayon na rin ako dahil magiging maganda rin naman ang kalabasan.
Yung alak na yan, siya yung hugutan. Pag may problema ka, sa yung mga kasama mo. Minsan nakakaubos kami ng 5, 6, depende sa kondisyon. Lalo pag may problema pa yung tropa, lalo pang madadagdagan. Maganda din po yun, yung buwis na para sa alak. Kasi para din sa mga taong umiinom ng alak yun eh. Kung dadagdagan ng buwis, okay lang naman din po. Sang-ayon din po ako doon.
Mr. President, the proposed rates this representation will be discussing shortly can save thousands of lives. But before I proceed, I just want to point out those were not actors, those were real people, our regular ones and onas. Time and again, the manufacturers of this product have asked us to be reasonable with rates. In our experience, Mr. President, this argument is rarely, if at all, used to advocate for the Filipino family. Reasonable should not be code for lower prices. For us senators of the Republic, a reasonable proposal is one that actively protects the Filipino family. The only way to go is that which leads to the protection of people's lives. And this is not just me speaking as a mother or a health advocate. This is me speaking as an economics major. Demands for this product is inelastic. This means that even if we increase the prices by a great margin, the demand for these products will barely be affected. The rates we proposed and the resulting retail prices will barely affect demand. Mr. President, kikita pa rin naman ang kanilang industriya. And although the principles of economics show this, I choose to believe that by raising the excise tax once again, the state is delivering this message. If you must drink, then drink responsibly. With all things considered, the committee proposes these new excise tax rates on the different types of alcohol products. Distilled spirits will be imposed an ad valorem tax of 20% and a specific tax of 90 pesos per proof liter on year 1, which will be increased by 10 pesos every year until year 4. The specific tax rate will increase by 10% every year thereafter. The reason for this is as follows. Distilled spirits often have a high alcohol content, which is why the specific tax rate is based on proof liter. From a health standpoint, a bottle with a higher alcohol content will be taxed higher than those with a lower alcohol content. The ad valorem tax, meanwhile, addresses the range of price points among distilled liquor. Since this is based on the product's prices, the cheapest brands will be taxed lower and the more expensive brands will be taxed higher. For fermented liquor, otherwise this is what you know as beer, and Alcopops, which is the sample that I showed you just now, we propose a specific tax rate of 45 pesos per liter on year 1, increasing by 10 pesos every year until year 4. The specific tax rate will increase by 10% every year thereafter. I will give you a few seconds to look at the figures on the screen. Finally, for wine products, there will be a specific tax of 600 pesos per liter for sparkling wine and 43 pesos per liter for still and carbonated wines. These rates will increase by 10% every year thereafter. These are a lot of numbers to digest, so please allow me to illustrate before we leave the subject of alcohol. Mga 500. Mga 500. Let's take, for example, the product category which has the highest alcohol content, distilled spirits. I am holding in my hand the most popular product on the market called Gin Bilog, Gin Bulag, or Gin Sipol. The suggested retail price of this product is 45 pesos and 97 centavos per 350 ml. The committee proposes an ad valorem rate of 20% on the net retail price and a specific tax rate per proof liter of 90 pesos on the first year, which will increase the price effectively by 20 pesos and 59 centavos. However, I must emphasize that this 350 ml bottle is not meant to be consumed by one person in one sitting. Kahit pa gaano kabigat ang problema mo, kahit ilang beses ka pa nabasted. It is generally shared by 3 or 4 people and contains roughly 10 shots, or as we more commonly know it as tagay. Therefore, per tagay, my dear colleagues, it is an increase of 2 pesos. 2 pesos, dear colleagues. Is 2 pesos too high a price to pay to protect our citizens from consuming a product which health advocates refer to as pure poison? That is the question I leave with all of you. I move on now to e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. Mr. President, the committee also sat through presentations from the health advocates and the industry players to acquaint itself with the different types of e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products, or HTPs. The manufacturers and distributors presented to the committee their positions that e-cigarettes and HTPs are viable alternatives to smoking regular tobacco cigarettes. I will pass on a particular type of e-cigarette for those who have never seen it. It's here. So I'm holding some now. These are the liquids, but they'll also be passed around for your consumption. Not consumption, sorry, for your visual appreciation. Visual only. So let me continue now. I will repeat the last statement I made. The manufacturers and distributors presented to the committee their position that e-cigarettes and HTPs are viable alternatives to smoking regular tobacco cigarettes. In other words, they claim that e-cigarettes or vapes can help cigarette smokers shift to a less harmful product. And I have met smokers who attest to this. They have shifted from regular cigarette smoking to vaping or HTPs. But the reason they smoke e-cigarettes or vapes are very different from young people, teens, and children who have now taken this up as a habit. These young ones find flavors such as watermelon, mango, strawberry, or even their favorite cereal appealing, and the whole experience of vaping cool. Allow me to quote biobehavioral scientist Shuttira Krishnan Sarin, who said, "The first time I heard of and saw an e-cigarette, I knew right away that teens would love it. These devices are technology on a stick, a perfect fit for the smartphone generation. Some even sync with your smartphone to let you know how much you have vaped. Since I have spent a long time researching teen and adult addiction, I immediately realized that these devices fit perfectly into the teen psyche. Teens are impulsive and they love to try new things. They're always craving independence and they love to make things their own. E-cigarettes meet these needs perfectly by allowing them the chance to both innovate and personalize their vape experience." The industry does claim that it is a safer product, but medical experts have pointed out that safer does not mean safe or risk-free. In fact, dear colleagues, the science is all very new. And while experts around the world are still studying this, we have already seen and heard an avalanche of news of people who died because of lung failure in the United States. People who were consistent users of these vape products. While investigations are ongoing, different states and cities in America are already moving to ban e-cigarettes and vapes, possibly joining a long list of countries who have already banned e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. The Philippine medical community is likewise one in expressing grave concern about the dangers of e-cigarettes. Thus, Mr. President, this representation asks that we err on the side of caution. For the sake of our children, we must regulate and tax e-cigarettes at parity with regular tobacco products. Other countries are already doing this. At the very least, we must keep pace. Vaping is not cool when it leads our kids to the path of new addictions. And on a final note, this committee is tasked with the taxation of these products. But this in no way limits the Department of Health and Congress to undertake steps to protect the health of the people. To conclude, with the termination of our hearings on the excise tax on alcohol, e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products, and the delivery of this sponsorship speech, which contains the recommendations of the committee, the first part of my job is done. The second part will commence upon the period of interpellation and exchange of ideas, which I hope to have with all of you, wherein I will gladly listen to your individual comments and recommendations, and take into consideration the collective wisdom of the body in crafting an even better version than what your humble representation has presented. We are driven by the resolute support that President Duterte has expressed for higher taxes on alcohol and e-cigarettes. During the hearings, the medical community and civil society were united in urging Congress to regulate and use the power of taxation as a regulatory measure. This representation understands that taxation is not a cure-all solution, but it is necessary to curb vices and addiction, and we must utilize it. We remain cognizant, however, that taxation is just one tool and that a comprehensive strategy is necessary, and we urge DOH to work with our medical community on this through aggressive interventions and policies. I, for one, will also be filing measures to support a holistic approach to these ailments and addiction. With around 40 to 50 billion incremental revenue for this bill, we are closer to being able to fully implement the UHC, a law that will benefit future generation. It will also help us fulfill our sustainable development goals. Dear colleagues, you have trusted this representation to study the matter and make recommendation, and I humbly ask that you review these numbers, keeping in mind that our higher calling is to improve people's lives. The choice we make today can lead to happier and healthier households in the future. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to also take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Finance Secretary Dominguez and his tax reform team led by Yusek Carl Chua, and I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Yusek Eric Domingo of the Department of Health and his team. On that note, I will accept interpellation next week. May I request that you give your names to the Majority Floor Leader and indicate the topic you wish to interpellate, whether alcohol or e-cigarettes, to facilitate our discussion and to ensure the availability of the resource persons. Thank you.
All right, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, for our colleagues to study the measure. But further, Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 1074.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, we have another measure that we are going to sponsor today, equally as important as we feel for public order and security. I move, Mr. President, with the permission of the body, to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to the calendar of special orders, Committee Report number 5 under Senate Bill number 1055. So moved.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Bill number 1055 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1055, an act establishing a separate facility for prisoners convicted of heinous crimes.
Mr. President, may I ask for a half-minute suspension while awaiting the sponsor? I believe he had a restroom break.
Yes, and may we ask the President Pro Tem,
Pro Tem.
Senator Ralph Recto, to take over so that I can
You may also
co-sponsor
sponsor your measure.
the measure after the main sponsor.
Yes.
Session suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, may we recognize the distinguished chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee and the Committee on Justice, no other than Senator Richard J. Gordon, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Gordon is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is said that no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its higher citizens, but its lower ones. This is a quote from Nelson Mandela. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues in the Senate, the Committee on Justice and Human Rights now sponsors for the consideration of this chamber Committee Report number 5 and 6, approval of its proposed measure, Senate Bill number 1055, entitled An Act Establishing a Separate Facility for Prisoners Convicted of Heinous Crimes. The following bills and resolutions relating to the proposed measure were referred to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. These are Senate Bill number 983, introduced by this representation, entitled An Act Establishing a Separate Facility for Prisoners Convicted of Heinous Crimes. Senate Bill number 2, introduced by Senator Vicente C. Soto. The third, entitled An Act Establishing a Detention Program and Facility for High-Level Drug Offenders within the National Penitentiary System under the Bureau of Corrections, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. And Senate Bill number 1004, introduced by Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri, entitled An Act Establishing a Separate Prison Facility for Those Convicted of Heinous Crimes. Now, Mr. President, according to the Constitution, Article 2, Section 5 of the 1987 Constitution, the maintenance of peace and order, the protection of life, liberty, and property, and the promotion of the general welfare are essential for the enjoyment by all the people of the blessings of democracy. Article 2, Section 11 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Under Republic Act number 10575, otherwise known as the Bureau of Corrections Law, under its declaration of policy, it is the policy of the state to promote the general welfare and safeguard the basic rights of every prisoner incarcerated in our national penitentiary. It also recognizes the responsibility of the state to strengthen the government capability aimed towards the institutionalization of highly efficient and competent correctional services. Towards this end, the state shall provide for the modernization, professionalization, and restructuring of the Bureau of Corrections by upgrading its facilities, increasing the number of its personnel, upgrading the level of qualifications of their personnel, and standardizing their base pay, retirement, and other benefits, making it at par with that of the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. Sounds nice to hear, but in reality, they have not been really done. Section 4, the mandates of the BUCOR, or the Bureau of Corrections. BUCOR shall be in charge of safekeeping and instituting reformation programs to national inmates sentenced to more than 3 years. Safekeeping of national inmates. A, the safekeeping of inmates shall include decent provision of quarters, food, water, and clothing in compliance with established United Nations standards. The security of the inmates shall be undertaken by the custodial force, consisting of corrections officers with a ranking system and salary grades similar to its counterpart in the BJMP. Our Philippine criminal system creates just results for some people, but it is terribly unjust for far too many others, particularly the poor. For decades, massive congestion and delay have plagued Philippine courts. With increase in population, rise of drug-related cases, lack of judges and court personnel, and slow disposition of cases, congestion and delay have reached critical proportions, with courts registering thousands of cases and trials lasting for years. Our jails have also become increasingly more packed, propelling the overall prison system of the country to the top of the World Prisons Briefs list of the most overcrowded incarceration systems in the world. As you can see on the slide, the Philippines has 463.6 congestion rate, Mr. President, top of the heap. Congestion in jails lead not only to health and sanitation problems, but also to increase gang affiliation of inmates. To sustain survival, inmates hold on to gangs or pangkat where they find protection, network of social support, and most important, access to material benefits. In effect, the inmates have begun to run, if they've not yet been, they've been running the jail system for a long time. Consider the fact that they could bring in anything from TV to cell phones, and have all the appointments, such as stereo, even concerts in jail, in the Bucor. This substitute bill, Senate Bill number 10556, seeks establishment of a separate facility for prisoners convicted of heinous crimes. The heinous crimes penitentiary will house the most dangerous, vicious, and violent criminals. Separating them from the public will ensure their personal safety, the safety of other prisoners, and the safety of the guards, and the safety of the public. Justice Santiago Capunan, in his dissenting opinion in People versus Alicando, traced the etymological root of the word heinous to the early Spartans word haineus, meaning hateful and abominable, which in turn was the Greek prefix haton, or haton, denoting acts so hatefully or shockingly evil. Under Republic Act number 7659, heinous crimes are described as heinous for being grievous, odious, and hateful offenses, in which by reason of their inherent or manifest wickedness, viciousness, atrocity, and perversity are repugnant and outrageous to the common standards and norms of decency and morality in a just, civilized, and ordered society. Need I talk about the crime of Mayor Sanchez and many others way back in the past, such as the Jaime Jose or Maggie de la Riva case? The main objectives of this bill are to decongest our current penal facilities, to prevent those convicted of heinous crimes from influencing the general population of prisoners, and to protect all the prisoners and the general public from violence and unwarranted behavior. First, let me go back to the first objective, to decongest our current prisons. As of September 18, 2019, there are a total of 47,354 inmates in the various prison facilities under the Bucor, which is supposedly for 12,299 inmates. Only. Congestion rate of 258%. As of September 18, 2019, the National Bilibid Prison has a population of 27,619. 329% congestion rate. You can imagine. Correctional Institute for Women at 3,255, 86% congestion rate. Even women are not spared. Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm at 2,849. And by the way, this is wide and beautiful country, 361% congestion rate. Davao Prison and Penal Farm at 6,779, 370% of the congestion rate. San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm at 2,235, 338% congestion rate. Sablayan Prison in Mindoro and Penal Farm at 2,697, 200% congestion rate. And the Leyte Regional Prison at 1,920, 197% congestion rate. As of September 13, 2019, there are 30,377 inmates confined at Bureau of Corrections who committed heinous crimes. Can you imagine that? Out of this number, 24,581 were sentenced to death, life imprisonment, or reclusion perpetua. As of September 18, 2019, data of the Bureau of Corrections, and I hasten to say I am not really reliant on their data. We have had to bring all their data here, and the staff has been working day and night, along with the Department of Justice, to fix up the system by making sure that we go one by one on the carpetas. Out of this number, 24,581 were sentenced to death, as I said. As of September 18, 2019, data of the Bureau of Corrections, the National Bilibid Prison has a population of 27,619. Now consider this. Out of this number, 18,456 or 67% inmates are in the maximum security compound. 67%. In the medium security compound, they have 6,525 or 24%. And 1,420 or 5% inmates in the reception and diagnostic center, and 1,087 or 4% inmates in the minimum security compound. Baliktad, mas marami talaga yung mga heinous criminals kaysa dun sa mga nasa minimum. The second objective of this bill is to stop those hardened criminals from influencing or running practically the general prison population. Excuse me. In the case of People of the Philippines versus the Los Santos et al., GR number L19067-68, July 10, 1965, the Supreme Court, citing the impressions of trial judge Honorable Andres Reyes of New Bilibid Prison, saying that hardened criminals were mixed with light offenders. Extortions and all sorts of crimes were being committed, most of the times right under the very noses of the guards, who, to top it all, could not maintain even a semblance of order and or discipline, as they were so outnumbered and themselves afraid that they may also be stabbed or liquidated. In the raids made in about 2015, if I'm not mistaken, conducted by the Bucor, the General Bucayo was quoted as saying, "I'm fearing for my life." That was the excuse he gave General Magalong. Because of this situation, helpless inmates, by reason of their physical build, have been abused and could not complain for fear of reprisal. This thus perpetrates an evil system. All this contributed to augment the growing feeling of the inmates that they are living in a world of outcasts, which they really are, where only the mighty and the strong survive. That's not a far cry from our society right now, where hope of redemption is illusory, and where life has been subjected to the law of the jungle or the law of the survival of the fittest. Pwede natin sabihin yan doon sa mga lugar natin na mga congested, na nagkalat ang droga, ganun na rin ang pakiramdam nila. Pinasok na rin sa preso yan. And third, we want all our prisoners protected from violence. They still have their human rights. Separating heinous crimes convicts will help ensure their personal safety, the safety of other prisoners, the safety of the guards, and the safety of the public. Now, Mr. President, we have had riots in other countries where they are not as congested as the Philippines. As of 2017, jails and prisons in Brazil were operating so over capacity that on average a space designed to hold 10 prisoners was holding 17, according to data from their ministry. Even in Scotland, the population reached 8,222 in 2019 from 7,400 inmates only in 2018. According to the report, such overcrowding caused riots. It also caused levels of violence, self-harm, and prison suicide to rise because they cannot cope with their current conditions. In Nebraska, the United States, 4,500 inmates, 139% over capacity. In 2015, a prison in Nebraska was taken over by its inmates for several hours. 2 were killed before the staff regained control. The riot was worsened by the fact that it was horrifically overcrowded. And again, in the state of Para, Brazil, inmate population in 2018 was 16,505. The penitentiary system could only hold 7,950 only. And you've seen TV footages of these countries with the jails burning, people being killed, families outside the jail really screaming and hoping that they would not be, that they would, their loved ones would be spared. An example of prison violence is when Tony Ko in the Philippines died after a riot at Building 14. This is not uncommon. At the New Bilibid Prison last September 28, 2016. Peter Ko, Vicente C., J.B. Sebastian, and retired Police Chief Inspector Clarence Dongal were also injured. Reports said that the two Cos and C were reportedly using shabu at the cell of Peter Ko. Imagine they were using shabu right inside the prison. An inmate, Edgar Cinco, saw them and reported them to Dongal. Dongal reportedly called out the group for using illegal drugs and then went to the cell of Sebastian. Tonico supposedly ran after Dongal and attempted to attack him. On January 8, 2015, an inmate was confirmed dead and 19 hurt in an explosion inside the maximum security compound of the New Bilibid prison. A grenade likely caused the explosion, which occurred in the area of the commando gang. In previous raids, they've confiscated weapons, they've confiscated grenades, and all kinds of weapons that certainly have been smuggled or crafted in prison. On January 1, 2015, a visiting child of an inmate nearly got raped inside the maximum security facility. Bucor Director Franklin Jesus Bucayo excuse me, said NBP personnel found the victim unconscious inside the toilet of the chapel in the facility with no underwear and a rope around her neck. This facility will ensure the control of these criminals and give the general public a sense of security and a peace of mind that they are away from those who have proven themselves deprived of basic moral aptitude necessary to live in a peaceful community. Now, in other countries, they've introduced this. They hold the highest level of security for heinous criminals. One is the Supermax facility. Sounds like Mad Max, doesn't it? Supermax facility in Australia inside the Goulburn Correctional Center in Australia, which is designed to accommodate male inmates who have been found to be an extremely high risk to the good order, safety, and security of other correctional centers, serious threat of escape, detained under national security provisions, or considered high public profile. There are pictures there of the correctional facility. Seems like a good-looking hotel, but that's Australia. In China, they have the Kingshan prison, where prison cells are 20 square meters with its own toilet. Anything that they can use to commit suicide has been removed. In Indonesia, they have their own Alcatraz. The Nusa Kumbangan Island houses more than 1,500 inmates, including those found guilty of drug trafficking and terrorism. Some of our Filipino compatriots have been brought there, and one of them has been, so far, been able to escape the execution. In Japan's largest prison, the Fuchu prison, houses male offenders with prison terms 10 years or longer who have passed prison records. The United Kingdom has HMP Wakefield, which houses a close supervision center to provide a supportive, safe, structured, and consistent environment for some of the most challenging offenders. The United States has ADX Florence, where all outgoing and incoming mail as well as telephone calls are monitored and educational and recreational programs are played on inmates' televisions by a closed circuit system. And finally, Russia's Black Dolphin prison, where every inmate is isolated in a single cell, kept under 24-hour supervision that includes guard checks every 15 minutes and constant CCTV cell surveillance. Now, what are the silent provisions of this bill? The maximum penal institution shall be built in a suitable location to be determined by the Secretary of Justice, preferably within a military establishment or in an island separate in the mainland. We need to build in Fort Magsaysay, for example, in La Nueva Ecija. By the way, they have a very big drug rehabilitation center there that's not being utilized already, and I think I have a picture of that somewhere, and that can be shown here. I understand also in Bukidnon, a Chinese guy also built a drug rehabilitation facility, and that is the Fort Magsaysay Nueva Ecija unfinished jail, not unfinished jail, but really for rehab. For rehab. Yeah, rehab lang yan. Laki, no? So, now, Iwai Prison and Penal Forum, which is a total land area of, listen to this, 26,295.54 hectares. We can also expand the Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm, which is a total land area of 8,372.40. Right now, Muntinlupa has about a population, has a hectareage of about 254, and it's shrinking, and which could be utilized for, for development without having to sell it. At least that's my position. It shall be located in a secured and isolated place, ensuring that there is no unwarranted contact or communication with those outside of the penal institution. Now, Mr. President, there shall be, in our proposal, for a start, 3 maximum penal institutions for heinous crimes, starting in Luzon, then in Visayas and Mindanao. Actually, we can actually expand Iwahig already, or we can actually expand Sablayan. The maximum penal institution shall be a state-of-the-art facility with surveillance cameras, at the very least. Latest information and security system capable of 24/7 monitoring of prisoners just on time, all the time, and with enhanced and extensive security fixtures on locks, doors, and its perimeters. Excuse me. The facility must be maintained clean and habitable at all times. Sanitary and hygienic comfort rooms shall be provided and maintained. These are not wild animals, so we should really try to unwild them, if you will, domesticate them. And this can be done by various proposals which we're going to include in a more comprehensive bill later on. We have been overtaken by events here as we were doing this bill. Because we wanted to make this bill very fast, we have to introduce this so we can start right away. The public deserves no less. According to Senator Subirin, naghihintay na ang publiko at saka Senator Soto, magkaroon tayo ng bagong mga prison centers dito sa ating bansa. We can have a second law, and we intend to file a second law bill regarding the penology that includes training, rehabilitation of prisoners, and digitalization of all records, or we can amend the bill and incorporate it now, Mr. President. In Iwahig, Malacan Lupa, ganoon rin sa Sablayan, as I said, we can have a total reform measure, but for the moment, we simply have to do this so we can initially drain the swamp of Muntinlupa. We will distribute the heinous crime criminals in the places where their families are near. Drugs, rapists, and murderers, kidnappers into, and dapat nating himayin within this bill, pwede natin sila ilagay isa-isang island sa Palawan. Now, para lang masabi natin ang konting vision naman para magkaroon tayo, di ba pwede sa Iwahig rerun the prison centers as a business. You could actually have them plant rice, together with the Department of Agriculture. You could actually have TESDA teach them. You could actually have the Red Cross teach them life-saving methods. You can have retired military personnel. I'm sure there are a lot of military and police personnel. There are even retired military to conduct drills every morning so that they will drill information, have proper uniforms. You could have people making uniforms for the prisoners themselves and use the rice, use the piggery, including African swine flu, that they can have, and I'm just kidding, setting it aside, so that they can feed themselves. It can be a self-sustaining facility. They can even be trained later on to run the facility themselves. So far, we've simply, done handicrafts, which I think are totally passé. They don't even have any design capability. There are any number of talents in the prison system. They've got lawyers there from UP, basketball players from Ateneo, and that graduated to Muntinlupa. There are many others, I'm sure, that can help teach those who are unlettered, cannot read and write, and we can have a system, and we should provide a budget for that. So this is what we intend to do. Either in this law, if we like, we'll have to come up with a new bill shortly after we pass this. We will finally get confidence from society that both persons convicted of heinous crimes are separated from society and reformed separately. Now, Mr. President, I had the opportunity to visit a prison right in the middle of the city of New York, where they have Ramzi Yusuf, the bomber of the first bombing of World Trade Center. He was alone in a prison, completely white. Everything was cemented to the ground, concrete tables, his own comfort room, and he doesn't go out. There's a small window that you can see him, and it's just like looking at the devil, because he doesn't want to see anybody, he doesn't want to look at anybody. And when we knocked there, he gave us the look of the devil indeed. And these are many, many persons that are incarcerated in some of the prison systems in the country. Of course, we cannot go to Guantanamo, we cannot go to Uzbekistan, where a lot of reduction is taking place among what we call the so-called terrorists in the world today. Having said all this, I am passionate about the creation of a separate Heinous facility, just as I'm sure Senator Soto, who has shown the leadership and the drive to make sure this happens, along with Senator Subiri. Already, all the other senators, like Senator Pacquiao, wants to co-author this. Senator Villanueva, Senator Gatchalian, and Senator Revilla, and many others. This is just the first step, Mr. President, I emphasize this. But there is a clamor to make sure that we do something about it. We must do it right away. We cannot do it piecemeal. We can think of distributing the 27,000 people in Muntinlupa to three different, and you have a more manageable 8,000 prisoners per system. And then you could come up with the necessary reforms that will make it a model instead of being talked about in the world as an uncivilized country. And mind you, we're not even in detention prisoners. This is just the Bureau of Corrections. Our task is really huge, Mr. President. This representation intends to address also the BJMP, and we have started that already with the law that allowed community service in return for arresto mayor and arresto menor first-timers. So, Mr. President, I hope that we will all pass this. I exhort everybody to listen to the speech of Senate President Soto and Majority Floor Leader Subiri, perhaps even the Minority Floor Leader later on. But certainly this is something that we must face, and we cannot put our heads in the sand and say, well, these are bad prisoners, these are bad people, let them suffer. We can no longer do that anymore. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues, for your patience.
Majority Leader.
May we also recognize the sponsor of the measure, our distinguished Senate President Vicente Soto III.
Senate President is recognized to also deliver a sponsorship speech.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues, evil, it has been said, thrives in the dark. Crime and punishment have sought the comfort that darkness gives. The thief seeks the night, though in these millennial times, it doesn't matter anymore. Crime happens in broad daylight. Punishment, Mr. President, the requirement of reason and justice in payment of crime also seeks darkness. You have all been kept in the dark as to what goes on inside the forbidding walls of our National Penitentiary facility at Muntinlupa. It was the searchlight emanating from the power of Congress to inquire into the state of things that we are finally able to make sense of the shadows that lurk behind the walls of our prisons. Dati-rati, mga chismis lang ang naririnig natin. In the light of the legislative inquiry and investigations, we have parted the curtains behind the dungeons where we are supposed to rehabilitate our prisoners. We now know that our system does not work. A few years ago, we were given a hint of what goes on behind those walls. We thought it was prison. It turned out to be a village, a country club, where a new moral code was in place. It was a world turned upside down. where the prisoners are also the rulers, given the power of money and influence. But just as what any reform movement needs, we must go back to basics. Let us not mix apples and oranges. The hardened criminals should not be in a position to further aggravate the ones who still have hope in their hearts to be productive members of society. My thesis, Mr. President, is that we must differentiate the system of rehabilitating the hopeless from the hopeful. Ihiwalay natin yung mga bulok na mangga sa mga bagong pitas. Mr. President, the purpose of this bill being sponsored by Senator Richard Gordon, other than to decongest existing penal institutions and accommodate the increasing number of inmates committed to the existing prison and penal farms, is to prevent the taking advantage of lax general rules for all inmates that allow these high-level offenders to continue their nefarious activities. This measure shall likewise regionalize the maximum penal institution by establishing this penal institution in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and shall provide a more secured and state-of-the-art facility. Prison location and the soundness of the facility in terms of infrastructures or security protocols greatly affect the government's ability to incapacitate as well as to rehabilitate prisoners. These factors dictate the effective removal of the offender from the society, thus incapacitating prisoners from committing further crimes, and at the same time, bring them closer to their families, which could help in their rehabilitation. With the overwhelming revelations on the state of corruption in the Bureau of Bureau of Corrections, the appalling condition of our inmates, and the poor quality of our prison facilities, there is no appropriate time to correct this but now. I therefore urge the body to support the immediate passage of this proposed measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if I may be allowed by the body to sponsor the said measure as well.
Please proceed.
Just ask the staff to put down the screen so that we can show also some pictures and footages. Mr. President, before the onset, I'd like to also recognize in the gallery with us today is the new Bureau of Corrections Chief, General Gerald Bantag. He's with us here today, Mr. President, a former bemedaled Marine.
Welcome to the Senate.
And a very, I think, very fit for the job at hand, Mr. President. I'm glad he's here to listen to the sponsorship of this measure. Mr. President, as the past few weeks have made clear, our current penitentiary system is severely flawed. High-level convicts and corrupt prison officials have made a joke of our system, turning our penitentiary facilities into luxury suites to bide their time in until they get out on so-called good conduct. So as long as you have the money for it, you can do anything. You can get jailed for running a drug ring and then continue running the said ring from within your cells. As the pictures I show today are actual footage of paraphernalia and drugs apprehended in our jail systems. You can defile a young girl, pass her on to your cronies, get her and her boyfriend mercilessly killed, and after all that, get preferential treatment in jail, easily smuggling drugs into your air-conditioned cell with your own flat-screen TV. This, Mr. President, is not justice. While moneyed convicts of heinous crimes enjoy the sweet stay in prison, their victims have to deal with unspeakable trauma and grief. A drug lord's countless victims have to continue grappling with the messy demon of addiction. A rapist's victims will be forever changed and haunted by the violation that she has experienced. A murderer's victim will leave a hole that their grief-stricken family will never be able to fill. This, Mr. President, is perhaps the bigger injustice. We cannot allow these convicts to live in comfort while their victims or families of their victims suffer the aftermath left in this criminal's wake. It is on behalf of these victims and the concerned Filipino people at large that I, together with Senator Gordon and Senate President Tito Soto, sponsor this bill establishing a separate prison facility for convicts of heinous crimes. This super maximum prison facility will eliminate inmates' chances of escaping or even having unwarranted contact with the civilian population outside. This is an example of a supermax facility in the United States called the ADX Florence, Mr. President. This will be located in remote and uninhabited, preferably uninhabited areas, to firmly keep these convicts from posing any sort of physical threat to society. This supermax prison facility will be similar to what most of the people around the world already know as the Alcatraz prison in San Francisco in the US. No TVs, no cell site receptions, no Wi-Fi, absolutely no connectivity. In this supermax facility, we are eliminating all windows for collusion. Even family visits will be restricted. There will be no more face-to-face conversations. Visits will be conducted through a physical barrier, like a glass window, and all conversations will be recorded and monitored. So convicts cannot slip in instructions for illegal activities to their visitors, have people assassinated, have people ambushed, or continue their drug trafficking activities. This supermax facility will also put a stop to collusion within the prison system, as is happening in our current penitentiary facilities, where high-level convicts use their power and influence and radicalize low-level offenders and commit their dirty work for them. Without the influence of high-level convicts, we will be able to set out low-level offenders off on a path to redemption and correction. What we also ultimately hope to achieve with the Supermax Penitentiary is to deter people from committing heinous crimes in the first place. Because life in isolation in a Supermax facility can be in many ways, more terrifying than punishment by death. There can be no more agonizing experience than living with no one but yourself in the pressing weight of your own actions. This Supermax prison facility, with these facilities, we may not even need to impose the death penalty as capital punishment. I feel as long as the criminals know what they're going to go to, such as these facilities, I think, Mr. President, siguro hindi na sila gagawa ng ganong klaseng krimen. This bill, Mr. President, is our stand for justice. Heinous crime convicts deserve a more highly secured penitentiary facility than that they currently have. And their victims deserve a peace of knowing that these convicts are securely kept far away from them and their loved ones. This sense of peace and security is essential as they rebuild their lives and heal their wounds. This bill, more than anything, Mr. President, is for them, the victims of these crimes. It is in the spirit of justice that I enjoin our colleagues to see the passage of this Supermax facility bill. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study this measure a bit further, may we recognize Senator Bong Revilla, Mr. President.
Senator Bong Revilla is recognized.
May the good gentleman from Olongapo yield to some clarificatory questions, Mr. President.
Willingly, Your Honor, the gentleman from Cavite.
Please proceed.
Okay. This proposed measure to establish a separate facility for prisoners convicted of heinous crimes is an offshoot of our hearings on the BCTA anomaly. Is this correct, Mr. President?
It's not only an offshoot, Your Honor, but it's certainly an idea whose time has come because we are severely congested. So kailangan pakita natin na we're going to address that problem as well.
May I know, Mr. President, how many prison units or penal farms do we have right now under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Corrections?
The Bucor has 7, Mr. President. They have one in, including Muntinlupa. They have one in Sablayan in Mindoro. They have one in Iwahig Penal Colony. They have San Ramon. They have Leyte. They have Davao Penal Colony. And the Women's Correctional, Mr. President.
Sorry. May I know the jail population in each prison unit or penal
I
farm,
mentioned
Mr.
that in my speech, Your Honor. I can show you the slide again. It says there that in the congestion rate in New Bilibid is 329%. There's a population of 27,619. It was designed for 6,000 prisoners. In Mandaluyong, for the women, they're also congested. And for many other reasons. For example, they have not really let people who are supposed to leave already or sickly. Somehow, in the past, we have had to lobby with the Secretary of Justice to allow them to go out already because they're old, they're dying, and some of them are able to go out. In the Iwahig Prison Penal Farm, we have 26,000 hectares, and there is a congestion rate of 361%, probably because the buildings are very small. And in Davao Prison and Penal Farm, they also have a correctional in Mindanao for women. We have 333% out of a capacity of 1,443. They have a prison population of 6,255. So talaga sobra-sobra. Even the correctional for women, they have a population of 524, and they're over capacity by 184 or 184. Congestion rate is 185. In San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm, meron silang 338% congestion rate. Their population is 2,235. The capacity was built only for 510, so they have 438% over capacity. Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm in Mindoro, they were built for 2,697. No, I'm sorry, the capacity was for 897, and the capacity is at 2,697 or 301%, or a congestion rate. The occupancy rate is 301%, and the congestion rate is 201%. And finally, in Leyte, they have, for a total of 861 hectares, still bigger than Muntinlupa. They have a capacity of 646, prison population of 1,920, and the occupancy rate is 297%. The congestion rate is 197%.
Of the jail population you earlier mentioned, may I know how many are those who have been convicted of heinous crimes, Mr. President?
67% in Muntinlupa alone, Mr. President. Out of the 30,377 for heinous crimes confined at the Bureau of Corrections, the 24,581.
24,400.
Sentenced to reclusion perpetua, life, or death. No more death penalty, so they're at reclusion perpetua now.
Okay, can we put on record, when we say convicted of heinous crimes, ano po bang mga krimen nito, Mr. President?
Marami yan. This includes treason, piracy, qualified bribery, parricide, o teka ng magulang, murder, 6,987 ang all, infanticide, wala, kidnapping and serious illegal detention, 825, Robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons, 1,606. Ang nasentensya doon ay 1,323. Destructive arson, 10 lahat. Ang nasentensya 7. Rape, 8,530. Ang nasentensya ay 7,555. Plunder, 3. Ang nasentensya 2. Section 3457 of RPC 6425, dangerous drugs ba? The dangerous drugs law, ang nasentensya ay 228 under sections 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9, and under section 14, 14A, and 15 of Article 3 of RPC 6425, 249 a sentence for life, and then section 16 of Article 3 of RPC 6425, out of 165 RP life, reclusion perpetual, life and death, or death have been sentenced about 65 out of the 165, or a total of under 9165, and that's the new drugs law. Out of 11,254, 7,383 were convicted for reclusion perpetual and life imprisonment.
So, the 30,377 prisoners convicted of heinous crimes you mentioned, Mr. President, are those who will be transferred to new facility pursuant to this proposed measure.
That is the plan.
Will the transfer in any way help this decongest jail facility under Bucor, Mr. President?
Definitely. Just thinking out loud, if you put 3 facilities na bago, you can transfer the 24,000 right away, and you can have 8,000 per prison, per prison system. You can still distribute them actually. Kung gagawa tayo ng additional facilities sa ibang lugar, mas maluwag pa yan.
Right now, may I know the prison arrangement for those convicted of heinous crimes? Saan po sila nakakulong? Nasa maximum facility ba sila? Ilan sila sa kwarto? May CR po ba sila sa bawat kwarto? May sarili po ba silang kama? Ano po ang kinakainan nila? Ano po ang arrangement for them, Mr. President?
Sa maximum prison facility sila, kung isa sa isang kwarto, umabot ng 100, at ang CR ay kulang na kulang, at talagang, sabi nga ng isang kaklasiko na nakulong doon, sabi niya hindi niya matiis, hindi siya makadumi, noong mga unang linggo niya, hirap na hirap siya.
In maintaining the 7 prison units of and penal farms, Mr. President, may I know how much is the budget of Bucor?
Well, the Bucor and the Department of Justice will have to submit, in accordance with this plan, their budget, and we are all together in making sure that they get the budget for this. And I think there is money for this. I know the Senator Lacson and Senator Dillon has found something like 7 billion available for this. I don't think we need to use all of that there.
That's right. The 2019 budget of Bucor is about 4 billion 99. That's right. 4 billion and 99.
Yes, that's correct.
That's right.
Correct.
Meron po ba kayong idea kung magkanong nagastos ng Estado para sa mga prisoners convicted of heinous crimes?
May idea ako yung ninanakaw. Yung ginagastos, hindi nagagastos. Diba sa pagkain lang. Nagkakalokohan na sa pagkain pa lang eh. Meron tayong darating na testigo sa October 1 na magsasabi kung paano ginagawa yung pagnanakaw sa pagkain ng mga preso.
And for this proposed facility, may I know how much budget are we looking at, to construct, Mr. President?
But at the proper time, we are going to have I'm in touch with the Secretary of Justice, and he should be preparing all this for our perusal and for eventual
It's
approval.
going to be a state-of-the-art facility with surveillance camera, latest information security
Well,
system.
it doesn't have to be state-of-the-art in the sense na akala mo you're living in Disneyland. But ang importante dyan mayroong digitalization para lahat ng mga nakakulong, alam mo kung nasa naroon sila, ilang time pa sila magsaserve, sila ba ay nagpapapardon, sila ba ay naparole, at dapat masasabihan yung mga kamag-anak ng mga napatay nila o nasaktan nila. So, at the same time, hindi magagawa ng paraan na may naglalagay dahil marireview mo yung conduct nila doon sa computer facility na yan. I don't think that's state-of-the-art. I think it's already here. And madaling gawin yan, no? Ang importante dyan ay yung talagang maaliwalas, hindi naman 4-star or 3-star or 1-star hotel, pero kailangan talaga Spartan. At we should invest in software, not just in hardware. Like I said, mabuti yung ating Bucor, dating Marine. I'm sure marami siyang makukuha na retired Marine na magkakaroon ng drill yan sa umaga, paglilinis sa kanilang paligiran. Dapat may latrine duty, sila na maglilinis doon. May merit-demerit system. I'm sure we can get LTO. They have machines for plate numbers. Or for example, we can produce addresses of homes. We can produce uniforms. We can have in the farms, piggeries, or farms or rice. So doon na sa Laur at saka dito sa kung makakakuha tayo ng lugar dyan, kakain na lahat ng preso na hindi na tayo maglalabas ng budget dapat.
That's right, Mr. President. Meron na po ba tayong nakikitang lugar kung saan natin ito pwede ilagay?
Katulad na sinabi ko, is we have in Sablayan, there's enough area there. In Iwahig, there's enough area there. So, magagawa natin yan even in Leyte. So, hindi ako worried doon sa lugar. Ang importante, magawa kagad at maramdaman ng tao na talagang may mangyayari. At although mabibisita sila, hindi ganun ka-often. Pero dapat alam ng mga pamilya nila na sila ay talagang susuito, nadidisiplina doon sa loob ng kulungan. At hindi na sila makakahalo-halo doon sa mga gangs. Lalo na pag hinuli-huli mo na yan, yung mga bagong preso dyan, kung ano-anong ginagawa nila dyan. Pag pumunta ka doon, makikita mo, may mga utusan yan, bawal sa manual yan. May mga utusan sila, may mga ayudante sila, may saksak sila. Dapat siguro madali na malaman niya kasi ngayon kanya-kanyang tago ng mga armas, kanya-kanyang libing ng mga armas. Nakita niyo, may granada pang pumutok doon.
Yeah, that's right.
At kung may CCTV yan na you can operate from outside sa Department of Justice, malalaman natin kung ano nangyayari dyan. I strongly suggest and support the idea that the Department of Justice must have not just administrative supervision, but practically control, except for the computation of services of sentence, the usual cut and dried service that superintendent of the prison should be doing. Pero yung mga major policies must be approved by the Secretary of Justice.
Before I end my interpellation, Mr. President, may I just show some pictures of the state of our jails in the Philippines?
I was going to show you pictures of our detention prisoners. Baka masukan na kayo.
Yes.
Kinoconcentrate lang natin sa Bucor muna. Yeah.
Ito. Sige, slide.
City Jail yan,
Okay.
detention prisoner yan.
Manila City Jail, Las Piñas City Jail.
That's a time bomb.
Grabe.
May mag-riot lang dyan
That's
malaking
right.
gulo na yan. No.
Pasay City
Dyan
Jail.
nagbabayad ka
Actually,
para makatayo
so many
o para
areas,
makahiga.
Mr. President. Yung talagang status ng bawat preso talagang iba.
But we cannot tolerate this.
That's right.
Hindi natin porke tinapo mo sila dyan, bahala na sila sa buhay nila. Dapat talaga may ginagawa para may rehab talaga. Sa detention, dinadagdagan pa natin, I'm glad that the President has signed the courts, the judges at large last night, and I commend the President for that, if I may humbly so do so. Makakadagdag na ng mga judges yung mga ginawa natin na para mas mabilis. Because ang isang problema dyan ay mabagal talaga ang sistema. So they can now put these judges para makatulong sa mga judges na hindi nagagawa yung kanilang trabaho ng gusto.
Okay, Mr. President, ako po ay sumusuporta sa inyong measure na ito. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for the questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Last Monday, by the way, distinguished gentleman from Cavite, my province mate as well, DOJ requested an additional budget of 478 million for Bucor, for the improvement of the prisons. But this should be detailed. Yes,
If I may, with the permission of the good sponsor, this 400+ million is for the purchase of survey equipment
digital.
that can better monitor the inmates, and this was the result of the suggestion of, I think, Mayor Magalong.
Yes,
If you
sir.
recall when you were conducting the hearing.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Magalong proposed a sophisticated monitoring system that would be able to spot better violations in the prison.
That's
And
correct.
so this is the proposed budget for this kind of a surveillance.
So it doesn't include the building of
Not at
additional-
all, sir.
Yes,
Not at all.
yes, sir. I thought that is certainly a step in the right direction. As we
Sorry?
both know, yung digitalization and sophisticated computer system.
Well, it could be included. I do not know if it will be included, but certainly this is not for prison buildings or additional facilities. This is just a capital outlay for
Surveillance
equipment,
and
surveillance.
monitoring.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The gentleman from Ricky Reyes Hair Salon will now.
Yes, Your Honor. I think we can teach that in prison. He can be the model, and he can teach that in among our inmates.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, with that, we
I
do
believe
move
he's the
to.
real minority floor leader. He's under the direction of the minority floor leader.
He's in a funny, happy
Yeah.
mood today, in a joking mood today.
I know, I
Mr. President, to
All in good humor.
allow our colleagues to study the measure. Oh, that's right. Senator Bongo would like to also make a manifestation on the issue.
Senator Go is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. The proliferation of heinous crimes has ignited a call for a tougher and more definitive stance against crimes that have plagued the security and development of our nation. I have always been steadfast in my position against any and all forms of criminality, especially heinous crimes. It is the same reason that I'm pushing for death penalty. In the absence of that, I support the proposal for a separate facility to ensure that they will not be a threat to society or to their fellow inmates and prison guards. That convicts of these crimes are housed in a separate facility is pursuant to the state's mandate to ensure and maintain the security of the public in general. Thank you, Mr. President. And in fact, nandito rin po si Director General Bantag kanina at willing po siyang tumulong para ilan ho bang ililipat natin na mga preso, Mr. President? 13,000? 1-3. Yung mga heinous crimes. Binilang na ngayon ni Bantag, baka mabawas-bawasan yung ililipat kung makakatulong raw siya kung pwede
Ililipat hindi babawasan.
baka para hindi raw tayo mahirapang ilipat yung napakarami, bago ilipat, mabawasan na raw konti.
That's right.
Yeah, but Mr. President, if Senator Go would accept an elaboration, we were looking at the budget of the Bureau of Correction. There was no budget for grenades, Mr. President.
May
Maybe augment, maybe we will
push for additional budget,
for grenades.
even for about 2 boxes of
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much for the point of information. Thank you.
Mr. President, I believe this is a measure, Mr. President, that believe all of us would support. But to allow our colleagues to study further the measure, may we suspend consideration rather of Senate Bill number 1055.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, move for a 1 Senate suspension, 1 minute.
Session is
Senate
suspended.
minute. I should have given the same. Oh my gosh.
Gago itong putang ina to. Pagsisilipan nga natin yung mga bukas sa mga hayop. Sinipalpal ko na eh. Saka sinipalpal ko ngayon si Mark Diverso eh. Dapat to, katampasin natin para may barkay sa sisyo. Sabi ko, I dare him to try.
Yeah, no problem boss with that, Judge.
Na nilagay ko, I
Where
dare
the
him to
sticks
try.
that we're gonna give you all,
Susundan ko pa yun ng ano. Susundan ko pa yun ng be my guest. Make my day. Sasabihin ko.
Baka ginagamit na stop yun. Okay, pa-check mo na. Baka nagkasgas. Confirm lang, oo. Sayang naman. Dalawa yun eh, dalawang pair. So you can choose. Walang short eh. Ayaw mahaba eh. Standard siya. Standard. May standard length yan. Puta, tsako boss, pang Chinese naman. Japanese yung tsako. Okinawan yung tsako. Ako yung team ko, training now sa Taiwan. What's your team sa ano? Kickboxing. They're in Taiwan now? Wushu, Sanshu, they're training there. Sa amin, kagagaling lang ng Korea.
Bale, sige, awayin natin, awayin. Sanay tayo dyan eh. Sige, wala. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Session resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. We apologize for the very long Senate minute. We just want to announce that UP won against LaSalle today by 1 point in a cardiac game. Mr. President, with no other matters today, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 30, 2019. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing done, session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 30, 2019.
Di ka na masabi.